Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com. My name is Neil. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I struggle because we just got done shooting the American Hustle, folks, and it is a great episode. One that Jeffrey and I really hammer home some good techniques on struggling businesses and a real business in Erie, Pennsylvania. So, if you have any interest in leadership, self-improvement, or, entrepreneurship, you might want to hear that one. The SFJ 4x4 difference gets talked about a lot, or at least the characteristics that make it up.
Yes.
As I was saying, my name is Neil, joined in the Grandma's Couch studio with
Jeff. And
Jeff.
So Jeff.
With the Jeff.
The Jeff.
The
Oh,
Jeff.
boy.
So at this point in time, it's the Jeff.
Oh, boy.
The producer, the Italian stallion, the Jeff.
The Jeff.
Dead.
And I'm the mad scientist. I have no good follow-up after
No, right? Falls flat.
that. Right.
Jeff.
Just can't overcake the
We're 100 plus episodes in, and
the
he's like,
Jeff.
the Jeff.
It's gone to his head at this point.
So anyways, the race for who's saying good morning first is in, and Amy
Amy's
is the winner.
first.
Good morning, guys. And then Darla, good morning. Brad, good morning, fellas. And Chip, good morning, guys. So
Yeah, glad to see everybody jumping in the comments. Just for funsies, if you're out there watching live, make sure you jump in, say good morning, say hello. Let loose in there a little bit. Enjoy the comment section. If you are one of our three lucky listeners across the globe, A, we appreciate you joining in. B, you can join us live as well every Monday at 10:19 a.m. on the Book of Faces live.
And if you do join us live, you can be in the comments helping Joe look for his pants as he's
Yes.
looking for them currently.
Thanks, Joe Brilla, for that as well. Fantastic. Today we will be doing part dose of USA versus the world.
Dun, dun, dun.
Bum, bum, bum. And so we'll be unpacking a little bit of today the difference of aftermarket parts. We talked a lot about Mopar and OE parts.
Yep.
And where Mopar performance has come from
Yep.
historically. Today we're going to be talking a lot about choosing aftermarket parts
Yep.
and some of the logistics that we have encountered through that
And do you
process.
save now or do you save later?
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand from Davey, as a spinoff of this two-part series episode, we're going to have a new YouTube series on unboxing products.
Yes, we're going to be doing further unboxings as a priority, where we are going to be sharing with you, our listeners and our viewers. So make sure you jump onto our YouTube channel. That will be on the SFJ 4x4 channel, not the I Speak Jeep podcast channel. That will continue. Excuse me. The I Speak Jeep podcast channel will continue to library and inventory all of these podcasts, whereas the priority of our YouTube presence is actually over on the SFJ 4x4 channel itself.
And speaking of Davey, he's literally messaging in from just across the studio
He's
here.
states away.
Yeah, he's states away at this point. I can't even barely see him because of the boxes. But he is chiming in saying to let everyone know that there is a new video that just dropped on Patreon. So again, if you're not a Patreon supporter, you better go on, check it out. Pick up one of those subscriptions, and you'll be able to see this new video.
Yep.
And if you're not ready to yet join us at the Patreon level, we did just drop a new video on YouTube for Life in Low Range on Friday. It's a fun one, follows us around to the shop. Some of the debacles that I encountered on New Year's Eve are being addressed. Likewise, you'll see some follow-up, some smack talk to some haters online. So you want to be part of that. And then just some sound quality repair work that, in the most SFJ flavorful fashion possible.
Yep.
So a lot of that is encountered there. And as Jeffrey and Davey have said, the Patreon is cooking with some of the personal updates that we're not revealing to the public for whatever reason. So how was your guys' weekend? Anything particularly exciting to share?
It was fairly busy for me. Kind of made it a point to get the tail pan of the car done. So I am glad to say that that part is finally over with.
Yay!
Yay! And even though I just can't help myself, I'm not completely happy with it. Everybody else is going, it's great. Like even some of the guys I follow on YouTube, this is how fun it is at this point, are following me on Instagram, and they're like, it looks great. Can't wait to see it with the fenders on. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Still wish it was a step better, but I guess that's what just me.
That's just
That's
us.
the
That's a
perfectionist.
perfectionist
Yeah.
ideal, you know?
It was very challenging to make it match the other side because you always forget, that little tweak you did there or that little bend you made there. Unless you do them both at the exact same time, it's really a challenge. And not only that, we're dealing with, an inner tailpan that's aftermarket. We have a car that's been backed into things over 86 years of its life.
Yep.
The little standoffs are original and they're tweaked a little bit and they're cast. And I thought I was going to heat them up with my torch and found out I was out of oxygen. So
Oh,
that didn't happen. So we got a pipe wrench out. And
Can I ask you something I thought I saw online? I thought I saw something like almost like a tail light that it appeared to be like on a stanchion about
Yes.
like 8 to 10 inches long.
Yep.
What is up with that? It looks like something out of like Monsters Inc., like one of the little critters'
Yes.
eyeballs like hanging off of.
That's just the Art Deco of that car. And just for those that don't know, you can go to sleep now. 35 is the start of that, and they are different than 36.
I'm so happy you're telling us about the differences of Henry Ford Company.
And sedans are different than coupes and different than Woodies. And
he's
yeah.
not done yet.
Oh my God, it's still going. Huh?
But
So
yes, that is the stock taillight on my car. I was trying to show out. That's literally a picture offline of what I was trying to make since I threw the original away like 6 months ago. So I had to go online and do a Facebook images search to go like, what the heck is this actually even supposed to look like?
So are you gonna have the little antenna things hanging off the back of the car?
Yes.
But you threw it away.
I threw away the tail pan, and that's what I was trying to show. That's a complete car. So that you're supposed to be looking at where the bumper attaches.
I wasn't. I was looking at the oogly eye of the taillight that was hanging off the side of the car.
Ironically, everyone has brought up those taillights. They're like, is that really the way that is? And I'm like, yep, it is. I'd love to put different taillights on it, like specifically Lincoln Zephyr taillights.
Mm-hmm.
But
Very
they're
popular.
$400 a set,
Yeah, it's because everybody wants to do it.
and they need restored. So I'm just gonna put the stock ones on.
That's super fun. If you don't know, you want to follow him over at 1936 Ford Crazy,
Yep.
right, on Insta. And see some of those pictures that he's uploading there.
And then the other exciting part is I'm trying to get prepared to take my Rubicon Gladiator called Celeste off-road, and it was beaten into us as young wheelers that you must have a matching full-size spare. We
Right.
go off-road. So I found on Marketplace brand new, slightly used tire that was this person's spare.
Brand new,
Slightly
slightly
used,
used.
yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. It still has the little nubbies on it, but so I got it's literally exact size that's on the truck. So I went on Sunday and grabbed that, and I had dreams and inspirations. I found a wheel the opposite direction that matches what's on the truck. But then I Googled that last night, and it's 6.5 hours one way.
Yep.
So Pennsylvania is really wide.
Yep.
I thought you said it was down like in Mercer or something.
Zillion Opal.
I thought it was that.
In Zelienople. Yeah, it was
it's
just
a
off of
town
79.
that sounds like that, but it's different. There's so many little
Oh, I
towns.
can't wait. Please pronounce it for us.
Oh,
geez.
yeah. I
All
want
right,
to hear
you,
this.
You figure out what the
Yeah, I'll pull
pronunciation of
that
that
up.
town is. Listeners, it's up to you. Can we get Scott his wheel? That'll be the question.
Well, not only that, can we guess which city in Pennsylvania he's actually
Oh,
trying to
God.
say once he pronounces it?
84. That's it. That's all. that's all. If you're listening to us and you're not from the Great Lakes Midwestern region, understand there really is a town in Pennsylvania called 84. That's just it. That's the number and the town.
Yep.
84. I always wondered about their like high school sports, like like here in like in Conneaut, Ohio, it's like CONNEAUT, right? That we have this cadence, right? Every school has this little cadence. Like, what is the cadence? What is the
what
the
about
cheer for
what about
84?
the player who's got number 84 on the field as they're talking about the town of 84?
84 really dropped the ball this time. Really screwed that up.
So it's Zionsville. It's not as hard as I thought it was. I just had a really short-term memory on that. Sorry. There's too many Ford facts in there and cheap
That's
facts.
funny.
Oh, Zionsville. All right. And Justin Beto jumps in, says hello, and he's been busy. And always fun fact, if you follow me online, I guarantee you I follow you back. So Justin, owner of JMB, has been very busy up there in Cleveland doing good quality Jeep work. So good morning to you as well. Jeffrey, you had what's a face? You had
A nonprofit.
big nonprofit weekend.
Yeah, nonprofit meeting. We met at Voodoo Brewing Company in Erie, which is where the event will be in April. And it was just a basic board meeting for the first portion of it, and then went into more of the event meeting and got a lot more details hammered out for the event.
Because that's coming down the pipe pretty
It is,
fast, right?
it
Which
is.
is what date?
It is April 19th.
That's what I thought, right? So we're only a few months away.
Yep. So registration for the artists that are going to participate starts February 10th. So we wanted to finalize some details in that regard. Our event shirt has final design and deposit paid on getting a batch of those run.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really excited about that. Volunteer shirts are going to be bright yellow, so it'll stand out. We can find volunteers, or anyone at the event will be able to find the volunteers easily.
Very cool.
So we're excited. Everything's moving in the right direction. Even the awards, the trophies that are going to be presented at the end of it were selected, and those will be getting ordered this week.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice. That's a very busy. And you know, for the handful of the three listeners, if there is a fourth who accidentally jumps on today, by pure coincidence, is the first time they've ever heard us. What's the name of the nonprofit?
Heberly's Heartstrings.
Yep, as a memoriam and honor of past family
Correct.
member.
And the idea is that it is a public library for lending musical instruments
Yes.
versus books instead of a book library.
Very cool.
It's awesome.
And then the event specifically is Jason Heberly's Memorial Open Mic Competition. And that's all about just music in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Excellent nonprofit in this area. One that, you know, as a lending library for musical instruments, you know, is definitely something that, you know, as an area, as a large market radius can benefit from.
Absolutely.
So, very cool. Lots more people jumping in. We say, you know, good morning to you all, and you know, thanks for jumping in the comments as well. Myself this weekend, the video on Patreon will explain some of that, but ultimately our Patreons are getting to get a more in-depth view of the insanity that is me trying to hand build a house with my wife and vinyl siding in the winter, you know.
I saw you also did some installation.
Yep, did some insulation, and that's just basically.
So was that based on Scott's advice of if I were you, I'd be doing insulation before I was worried about the siding, so I had a warm place to work?
You
Just
know what?
saying.
You know what? As far as insulation is concerned, I had originally wanted to spray foam. Obviously, if you've been following along this program at all, I'm really fond of spray foam.
You mean your baseball bats of excess foam?
Oh my gosh, so much spray foam. You know what? The cider
Not
is
saucered.
the guy who's siding the house is really frustrated with the guy who spray foamed the inside of the house because I went through and I spray foamed like all the little cracks or any little extra joints and everything. And now as I'm siding the house, you couldn't tell it behind the house wrap itself, but now that
How
I'm going
pushed
over
out it is?
how pushed out, like these little baseballs that have expanded through the little crack areas, and I'm trying to like beat them down while I'm trying to nail siding in, you know, 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts at 20 degrees.
I know a
So-
guy that dealt with that 4 years ago, and was why he was warning you about spray foam.
You know that guy, huh?
I do.
That guy, son of a gun. So you know what
They still have some there. May have scraped some off, and, you know.
right? Well, the thing is, I bought that really thick house wrap on clearance, which was
So it hit it.
incredible. You know, yeah, it was a blessing to have this great house wrap, but it hit it, and so now I can't like easily get. So I'm like hammering it flat with a hammer at this point, you know. Yeah, it's a real adventure, needless to say. The insulation was one of those things where while we're making some more elaborate cuts to get around things or even repetitive cuts, instead of just kind of waiting outside in that process, I can be up, you know, hanging some insulation and getting stuff in place. So just, you know, stayed very busy with that. And obviously managing some of our social media reach and you know, we actually had a very busy day here in-house on the shop on Saturday. So lots and lots of things going on and in the works for all of us at this time. So, and folks, if you're still with us, if you haven't fallen asleep yet, there will be a little game at the end of this program that you'll want to stay, you know, you'll want to stay on air with.
I'm actually slightly nervous about this because it's for once not a game that I had any involvement in.
You had no involvement in it.
And I have to participate. So now I'm
And
like,
you have
this,
to participate.
I now understand how you
You're
guys
having-
feel when I do this to
Are
you.
you having guilty conscience?
No, it's making me plot more.
Nice.
Because
nice.
depending on how this goes,
Oh god.
it may be a very revengeful game coming forward.
I think this is the game that I have planned for you guys is super simple. It's a lot of fun. It's really not that exciting.
We'll see.
And it should be a good time for all involved.
We'll see. So, anyways,
Yeah. So Jeff is like, please let us move on.
Jeff has
USA.
spoken.
Yeah, Jeff. The Jeff. The Jeff. Okay, whoa. My bad. So USA versus the world. The idea when we first came to market as SFJ 4x4, it was largely as a means to represent more USA-made brands.
Yep.
Throughout the earliest years of the business, it was very valuable to me to try and find good quality USA manufacturers. Now, many of the brands do start out as a what I'll call a USA vision. That means that somebody here stateside sits down at a drafting table of sorts and draws out what a bumper could look like or some other component that you might add to your
or
vehicle.
this is something I really need for my Jeep. I can't find, so I'm going to produce it. And then they get to the manufacturing part.
And manufacturing, they find out, is very expensive.
Very expensive. And then suddenly they can't make it for the price they thought they were going to without going and outsourcing that.
So in our geographic vicinity, which is this Great Lakes Midwestern region, I would argue we are in a hotbed of the aftermarket, kind of history context.
Yeah.
And we went from Detroit down through Pittsburgh up to Buffalo, and there have been fantastic manufacturers housed within this area. Mickey
Yep.
Thompson, Cooper Tire.
Yep.
Obviously, Four Wheel Drive Hardware was born and founded in this area with the Kennedy family. Tom Troll of Kentroll.
Yep.
So you have
We had all kinds of speed shops and 4x4 shops and all kinds of stuff that just kind of all popped up around this
hotbed of
stuff.
of manufacturing and aftermarket support. Summit Racing, Jegs,
Yep.
huge notable businesses, which you're in,
Yes.
which you were touching on there, are in our listening geography or our service geography here where we're at. And
I honestly
so-
think we kind of get spoiled. I was actually thinking about the other day. It's like I just grew up like you tried not to drive the Akron if you
Sure.
needed a part, but you could.
but you can.
And how many people can't
Correct.
do that? And we just kind of get used to doing that.
Yeah, that it's right here on top of us. And
Yes.
And so what happened in our come up within SFJ 4x4 was that the West Coast was importing long before the breadbasket of America, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to call our area here, is kind of this breadbasket of the aftermarket. And we saw large large-scale manufacturing and importation, overseas manufacturing and importation, saturate our West Coast, our coastal area, and then be trucked inland to our space. And those brands, and I'm going to put it out there just right here and now, because this is just going to be no magic, no ifs, ands, or buts. ProComp, Smittybilt, Rubicon Express. By the time that SFJ 4x4 is on our come up, those three brands are heavily manufactured overseas and saturating our markets.
Yep.
Put forth by Four Wheel Parts Manufacturing, right? They had a great model. They said, hey, we're going to saturate the markets with our house brands.
And then on top of that, kind of grew up in our rural area. You needed a Jeep for your farm, for your plow, that kind of stuff, and parts are falling off of it. You can't go to the dealer and buy them anymore. The parts house doesn't have them anymore. So what are you going to do? You're going to buy any part that you can, and then we instantly find out that it doesn't fit, doesn't function, reliability is less, that kind of stuff. So it kind of puts a bad taste in both of our mouths, as this is starting, its infant steps, going, we don't like it when we paid all this money for a part and it doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit or it doesn't last. And ultimately, I think you go back to Crown Automotive and Rugged Ridge or Omix ADA.
Yes.
And both of those had both of those businesses, which are great businesses, Omix ADA and Crown. We have nothing.
I have to have this weird
there.
talk with all my vintage customers, being like, we need to be happy that they exist, but we need to empower them to make it better.
Correct. Each and every time, right? Each and every time. And one of Scott's gifts in life is improving upon the part. You've literally taken speedometers apart, taken switches apart, bent switches, drilled things out, changed the little pieces of which they have manufactured. Now, the argument is that we shouldn't have to do that.
But at least have something to do it with.
But that's right, because other brands, if you were a Hudson person,
You're in trouble.
if you're a Studebaker person, you know what I mean?
Actually, 2-second Snorfest. Studebaker people are really lucky because they were like these crazy people who built lots of extra parts and they didn't sell them, and they had warehouse after warehouse after warehouse. And instead of them all getting scrapped, hoarders came in and took them all. So if you have a Studebaker, you can actually buy parts for it, and it's kind of crazy.
Oh, thank you for that. We're all so much better now. So
That's what I bring to the table. People.
what you bring? God bless your wife. How was work today? Well, let me tell you about Studebaker aftermarket parts. Fantastic.
Let me tell you about this one specific bolt that I found that is only unique to this year.
Unfortunately, Scott and I have done that over a bolt, so
I know.
I recognize that all too well. So here's the thing. All of these parts are coming in off the boat. Now, understand that ProComp, Rubicon Express, and Smittybilt all started as stateside products originally, right? And we're supporting at that time businesses, individuals who are employed here within the States, who are designing, who are doing quality control, who are doing warehousing, who are doing shipping. So to say that those products still have a degree of USA presence, they absolutely do, way more so than even some of your Amazon, Alibaba, Temu, Wish type products.
And this was before that stuff kind of hit the main stage as well.
That's exactly right. It's before all of those products where they were just getting on a cargo ship or a plane coming over.
And honestly, people didn't even realize they were buying overseas products.
No, not at all. You didn't know that Crown or Omix ADA were overseas, and quite frankly, because ProComp, RE, and Smittybilt were all once stateside manufactured products,
you just assumed it was.
You just assumed that it was still, which obviously a lot of manufacturers are riding on that. Terraflex being one of them, because the name once meant a USA proud type of brand. Now you can just kind of keep going with it, right?
Yeah. My favorite is when the brands say that they are a USA brand, and then you're like, well, where's this part coming from? Is it manufactured overseas and assembled in the U.S., or is it manufactured in the U.S.? And oftentimes it's manufactured overseas. The final assembly is done in the U.S.
Final assembly, and that's a very loose
designed.
Classification, right?
Or the designed in the U.S.
Yeah.
And again, go back to, we're also just fortunate that we can get product, right? Warn, for an example, has stateside manufacturing, but they also have overseas manufacturing.
Right.
And they had to do that because they were having to compete with Smittybilt winches, with the Badlands Harbor Freight winches,
Right.
with a handful of winches that were being sold on Amazon.
Well,
And the thing is, those winches actually flat out worked, right? Badlands is a good winch. Smittybilt makes a good winch. And so Warren was going, okay, well, we can either sell a winch in that $500 to $800 price point,
Yep.
or we can keep selling $2,000 winches or
Yes.
$4,000 winches. And
And we're in this weird situation
how do we do both?
as Americans, where we want to make a lot of money at the job, but we don't want to spend any money on the part.
that's now that actually is an important lead-in
Yeah.
to some of our customers' mantra of the pay now or pay later,
Yes.
but you always pay.
Yes.
Buy once, cry once.
Yep.
And there's a number of these ideas of where my investment can go further.
Yes.
And so just to backtrack a little bit to say that when I originally endeavored into retailing parts, the objective was to find a bunch of what I felt were reputable USA manufacturers.
Yep.
And so we started working with Rusty's Off-Road, Iron Rock Off-Road. We had some localized one, trailtubes.com.
Spicer.
Well, yeah, Spicer was a big global one, but
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
But that honestly, that was another battle cry. We hated putting U-joints in over and over and over.
Oh my God, I put in
and
so
over
many,
and
so
over.
many U-joints.
And then we just were like, why can't we buy these good stock OE style Spicer U-joints? And Neil was like, I don't know, let me make phone calls. And he did. And now we
Mhm.
have those.
And the
So-
thing is, like AutoZone in the beginning on their come up,
Yep.
they were selling a U-joint under the Brute Force
Yes.
namesake. That was actually a good quality, made in the USA, Niapco, made right in Pennsylvania,
Yep.
U-joint. And Niapco is a global manufacturer. They just happen to not have the OE manufacturing agreement that Spicer does,
Yes.
right? And so at that time, I was tickled to buy a Niapco or a Spicer. Now, granted, at this point in time, we almost exclusively use Spicer components, USA
Yep.
Spicer components, but
Well, the challenge of one of those boxed items like that doesn't tell you where it's from is they can switch manufacturers on you and not tell you or change the packaging.
and that is exactly what AutoZone was doing. Was they went from a Niapco agreement, which lasted a handful of years, and they
Yep.
said, hey, you know what? We can actually go with manufacturing overseas, and we can just keep changing out the product that comes in the box
Yep.
Based on whatever best contract deal they can get at that
based on
time.
Yep.
whatever manufacturing deal they can get at the time. Exactly.
Yep.
Right. And that's the challenge. So then when trying to choose some of these USA made products and bring them to market under the SFJ 4x4 flagship, we encountered some issues, right? And so there was the challenge of limited supply, right?
Yep.
When we were working with some of these small come up manufacturers who just basically, maybe it was a husband and a wife or just an individual working out of their garage, the challenge was fulfilling orders
Yep.
in a timely fashion that a customer expected with a final fitment and consistency that we need out
Right.
of the product. That's not to say that, good localized vendors aren't
Yeah.
reliable. It was just we started to realize going, hey, there's a balancing act to be had here because these import products there was a trade-off, right?
Yeah.
They were slightly lesser grade quality, but they have a high availability.
Well, and it's just human nature says, I saved a bunch of money on this, and now if I need to file this or ream out the hole, or hey, I need to go to the hardware store and buy bolts suddenly because it shorted me 5 bolts. I
Sure.
suddenly am okay with that because I had a deal.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, honestly, Rough Country as a manufacturer is not a terrible manufacturer. Actually,
Yeah.
a pretty good company when it comes to customer service, product
Yep.
availability, communication, all of the things. But one of the things we learned in the very beginning was basically throw away their hardware
Yeah.
and supplement with better grade hardware.
Or something else we've run into just because we install lots of products is they might have had a good design, they might have had everything figured out, and that guy left, is off at some other job, and they continue to produce that product, and maybe they switched manufacturers a couple different times, and now you have a breakdown in communication, and suddenly that nut that was supposed to be welded on that bracket so that you could bolt this together isn't there, even though it's shown in the instructions.
I feel like you've been recently touched by this.
I may have. And they don't give you the appropriate hardware because the hardware pack has not changed, because literally they are not aware that this happened.
Can I call out the brand? I want to call out the brand. Rough Country.
Oh, okay.
It's not a bad part. It's actually a really good thought out design. Luckily I'm a mad scientist and we were able to pivot and make it what it was supposed to be in the box. But yeah,
that's not the first time it's happened with that company specifically.
Well, and I think that
that is good quality product still. We're not bashing the product. It's just that the inconsistency of what their directions tell you are there versus what they actually send you.
And then we had a situation another time with another product, a different manufacturer, that literally the bolt pattern had gotten turned 90 degrees, and they just drilled it that way because they literally had whoever was assembling that part had no idea what it was for, wasn't able to correct that, and that was also a challenge.
So I like to think of it, and for our listening audience, you might understand this, the idea that a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy.
The resolution gets worse as you move down.
It does. The resolution gets worse the further you get away from the original conceptualization.
Well, it's also like the game Telephone.
Yes.
By the end, the message is distorted and not the same at all.
Correct. And so one of the issues that you see with some of these quality USA manufacturers, and I'm just going to keep going with Rusty's Off-Road because it's actually a very good brand as a whole. Rusty, who is Rusty, who created the brand, is still running the front of the house.
Yep.
He's still overseeing manufacturing. He's still responding to people on Facebook when they have a question or comment or concern about their product line.
Even had awesome recordings during COVID even.
He was the one getting on the phone call system and was like, man, don't you hate these delays? We're all like, yeah, we do.
Yes, very much so.
May have had some inspiration for our voice message.
May have had some inspiration. Right. And so he's able to go, hey, I remember when we designed this.
Yeah.
And I have this expectation of integrity so that when the bolt pattern, the first time that bolt pattern gets changed 90 degrees,
it gets fixed.
Yeah. Right. Whereas, and to speak to Crown's benefit, they are doing en masse purchasing from global sources, right? Understand it's global. So there's stuff that comes out of really quality South Korea manufacturing. There's stuff that comes from USA. Morse Gear actually provides a lot of Crown's products. So there's good quality metallurgy and construction there. But they also get some stuff that is out of, global warehouses. And so recently, we know we had a mix-up, wrong product, right box, and we called them, and they had to go in and cull their inventory.
And start opening boxes.
And eliminating product.
What was interesting is that they had been aware of this as an issue, and they thought they had culled their inventory once already and caught it all.
And then they called it again and found more on
the shelf. They found more after we had found it. So.
Which is always, good because they believe you at that point.
Well, and it's appropriate for them to go, hey, we're responsible for this. Where there is some manufacturers that we've worked with, and I'll choose not to throw their name out in this regard, that know that there's an issue.
And just shrug.
And they're just going to address it on a case-by-case scenario when somebody complains.
Yeah.
And that's a manufacturer. The one that's in my mind right now is a longitudinal or an institutional manufacturer, a household off-road name, if you will.
Yeah.
And they're basically like, yeah, we know it's a problem, but if you never turn this light bar on, then it won't be an issue.
Yeah.
Hint, hint. So the thing is, and the thing is, we exist to be that middle ground to address these issues. But as a consumer, the objective is, how do I sit down and I recognize that my best option is A or B, and why is that the case? And so the challenge with overseas manufacturing is going to be inconsistencies in final product, whether that's in packaging or manufacturing. There's going to be an actual inconsistency in the componentry itself. Our grading system that is on the state side, so if there are state level certifications, is going to be of a higher quality and grade. So whether that's wires, insulation componentry, or actual metallurgy of components themselves.
And paint and powder coat.
Now,
go ahead, Scott. You can keep going. I know you've got a list over there.
So those things that, and ultimately, the higher quality, the higher grading of those components is going to be reflected in the price point itself. The only little caveat I have to that is overseas powder coat. If you were to do a consultation with me on a 1v1, I'm going to tell you that there is a number of overseas manufacturers, Rough Country being one of them, Fishbone being the other one, that have really quality powder coat. And it's my opinion that they're spraying something overseas that we're just not allowed to spray here stateside.
Which also happens.
I don't know that that's truly the case, but that is my observation.
It's kind of like LEDs. They can only be produced overseas. They're not allowed to be made in the U.S. So anyone that claims they're a USA brand with LEDs is kind of just pulling a little wool over it. And
it's assembled in the U.S. It's designed in the U.S. It's there's a number of U.S. inspired.
Some of these companies, like Rough Countries, have to step up their game a little bit because they want to stand apart from the Amazonian parts that you buy. And sort of say, like, when you're tired of throwing that junk on, you can put our stuff on. And they had to pull themselves up out of the muck and mire a little bit, and kind of, I'm better than that.
And they really are, right? And they really are. Certainly, your JL, JT, JK components when it comes to bumpers, armors, accessory add-ons, they really are factually better. Now, I would argue that some of their older models, they're less hot movers. They might be manufacturing out of plants.
It's a little bit more of a copy situation.
Agreed. 100%. It comes back to that.
I'm not going to, and you can't blame them 100%. They're not going to put the R&D and the design money into a product that they sell 100 a year versus 3,000 a year.
Well,
exactly.
that and as the years advance, they're going to put more focus in the new products that are coming out. And have lower margins on that initial launch. Whereas they're going to start looking at how they can cut the cost on the older products and start making more margin.
You start to see things move around to different manufacturers, and suddenly the nuts disappeared somehow.
That could not be truer. And ultimately, talk about AutoZone, because there are good things that AutoZone or any box store manufacturer does. They initially launched that brute force line. They utilized Niapco quality U-joints and bearing assemblies. And then as that line exists longer in the market, they start to look at ways that they can increase margin and decrease manufacturing costs.
And that's one thing we try to ourselves is we do like certain brands, but we don't try to fall in love with any one brand, because you're only 3 to 5 to 10 years away from that brand changing from what it was.
Constantly cycling.
So you can't, sadly, think back to a good old day of, I had a CJ, put this brand lift on it, and it was fantastic, and now I have a JL, and I'm going to go buy that brand again. Well, 30 years have passed, and it is not the same manufacturer it once was. It may still exist.
Well, that's why when there's a company out there that's like, oh, I'm all about this brand, I'm like, what does that brand owe you? Like, are you getting paid to just use that brand? What is your reason? We mix and match all the brands.
Right.
It doesn't matter. We're cherry picking the best products from each brand.
Correct.
Right. And ultimately, please understand that one of the large parts of the USA business spirit is to in a global spirit, I suppose, is to purchase a brand that is already at a high level of function, right?
Yeah.
If I don't, if I can come in with a wad of money and just go in and purchase a brand that has a great household name, but then utilize it to saturate a market, and it comes down to that, how do I decrease manufacturing costs and increase market saturation?
Right.
All of our good quality brands started as good quality,
Yep.
and now what you believe that you hear advertised on YouTube or at your local chain part store and whatnot, those brands were once good quality, and now they're just being used to sell on their name itself.
Because we're creatures of habit. So, example is my dad had Craftsman wrenches, so I think I'm going to go buy a Craftsman wrench. They're not the same wrench they once were.
Man, I told Jeffrey, I was walking through Lowe's the other day, and if I didn't know better, if I was an average DIYer,
Yeah.
first of all, Craftsman would probably be sufficient for me.
Yeah.
And two, I would still think it was a powerhouse of a brand.
Yes.
The
right?
way that Lowe's has aligned themselves with Craftsman and their branding throughout the entire store,
Yes.
it looks like Craftsman is that household brand name that it
because-
used to be when it was Sears.
100%.
We remember going with Grandpa to get Craftsman stuff, and it made a difference. And we
Oh,
remember
yeah.
when it used to say "Made in USA."
Made in USA, lifetime
and you could
warranty.
beat on it and bring in this crippled up wrench and
Walk
exchange it
walk
for
into
you.
Sears service counter. Here you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
We grew up with that, so we just expect that, even though we may not need or expect that warranty now.
Right. But now, even if they do have a warranty with them, which they do have something, I don't remember the
Yeah,
details,
it's
but
not like it used to be though.
you don't walk into Lowe's and here I need to exchange this.
Correct.
You have to go through Craftsman
Yes.
and the mail and wait on it.
They've
and the
isolated
process.
themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And now it's how patient are you? Are you going to? And lots of people aren't. They'll just go buy another wrench.
And so
They're counting on that
they're-
sort of.
Yes.
and just on a level, it's my understanding that Stanley Products, which is the tool manufacturer there for a hot minute, which was once again a great household name.
Walmart brand.
Is actually in line because it's Stanley, DeWalt, and Craftsman somewhere in the parent in the tree,
Yeah.
right? And I bought a Stanley 3/8 extendable flex head ratchet years ago. I paid good money for it. I was a up and coming DIYer. It was kind of above average mechanical, and I buy this ratchet, which carried a lifetime warranty.
Yep.
And was above average price point for the market at that time. If it sticks out to me, it was like a $50 ratchet when most ratchets were like $15, right? I mean,
Yeah.
15 to 25. And so I buy this ratchet and I break it because I do. And I go to return it to them, and I had to pay shipping, and then I had to pay a handling fee.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, I was like $25 into this
You got to
ratchet.
really want it.
And I honestly, it sat in a box because I boxed it up, and I was like, you know what? Like, no, like that sucks. I actually have that ratchet in my toolbox today to remind me of that integrity piece, to say like, do what you say you're gonna do. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because to me, I had put forth a bunch of money as a teenager for this ratchet for it to be what I thought it was going to be, and then when it broke, I was kind of out on an island,
Yeah.
and I'm left holding the bag, going, "Well, you told me you were the greatest thing since sliced bread, and now I'm left by myself."
So you mean don't charge shipping and charge you $100 plus have to have the core back?
Oh yeah, okay,
Yeah.
Mishimoto.
Yep.
And that's the thing, is that as brands get further down the line, they can leverage their namesake
Yeah.
a little more. And when that ownership becomes more and more removed from what I call boots on the ground USA manufacturing, you get far and further removed. When you're responding to shareholders at this point,
Yeah.
you might still be a largely housed in the USA brand. You might be, right? But the reality is now you're responding to shareholders. You're getting further removed from the core principles of the market. it gets much harder to stand behind your product and make those on the fly adjustments that just
Yeah.
accidentally come up in the process.
Dale's in the comments saying Proto Tools does the same thing now, and they used to be a Pro Tool.
Proto was absolutely a big
Sounds
name.
like a prototype to me.
That Black and Decker is another one that used to be.
Oh yeah.
My dad had some great Black and Decker grinders that he just beat and beat on and beat on and beat on. They wouldn't die, and now I don't know that I would buy
My
one.
first
I'll be
circular
honest, I
saw?
still have a Black & Decker hand sander that is 20 years old, and
Yeah.
the thing just won't die.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing with Craftsman, sanders and tooling that it was from the 70s and 80s. They're
Yeah.
great products still. I'll be honest, when I was the same time I was buying that Stanley, I bought a Black & Decker circular saw, corded,
Yeah.
because my dad, I grew up, he had a Black & Decker
Right.
circular saw. So I was one of the things that I made sure, while other college students were out buying beer and
Yep.
what other, whatever wacky things they were doing, I went and was buying a good circular saw,
Yeah.
Now, it works. It
Yep.
works as a good corded saw. I don't know that I would go out and buy a Black & Decker anything right now.
No.
Another really good example is Delta.
Yeah.
I have a Delta planer, a Delta joiner, and those are still alive and kicking, cannot destroy them. It probably needs new knives all the way around, but they're running.
Sure.
And so when I started my house rebuild, I bought a Delta table saw thinking I was getting that same level of quality. Yes, the saw still works, but
Yeah.
it is not the quality
Yeah.
that you would expect.
So I think that's valuable is for unless we don't want to get off on a tangent of the tools specifically.
Yeah.
The same thing that we can all recognize in the tools, because that industry is just simply
Bigger.
50 years
Yep.
Yeah.
ahead of us, right? Of the off-road market. Understand that the household names that were alive and kicking through the 90s and early 2000s are not the names that we once thought they
Yeah.
were.
They either have maintained or they have not, and that's the biggest thing. And we take note of that ourselves, and we try to direct you accordingly, because we don't want to have to go and find hardware and machine and weld and that kind of
Well,
stuff.
it's
because that costs time, regardless if you're doing it in your driveway or if we're doing it.
And it's us learning as we go with it too. Like the flash cows for JK were just
Awesome.
they were awesome. They work. They don't work as good for JLJT, and now we've transitioned more to the Taser because
Yeah.
that's what the market's
You have to
dictating.
be willing to pivot as a good business to keep having, because we have a quality control as well. We want to give you guys what you expect, but that sometimes means we have to change parts and processes and things because it has changed on us.
Absolutely. And so some of those things that you can expect from a good quality USA manufacturing process is going to be a higher grade steel.
Yep.
Traditionally, the metallurgy itself is going to be less recycled metals, more raw materials. Overseas, there's going to be a lot more recycled components that are in the metal componentry itself.
Which there's nothing wrong with recycling, but that's how much process do they go through refining that recycled product, or are they just
Agreed.
pumping out another piece real quick and not refining it, getting that impurities worked out of it?
Yes.
That's what we see that's what causes a lot of, you'll see people every spring. I drove my Jeep through the winter, and now my bumper I got on Amazonian is rusted to pieces. Why is this?
Correct.
Well, it's in the steel.
Correct. You're also going to get a higher grade of powder coat or paint process,
Yep.
typically out of USA manufactured products, or
They're gonna
or
make
you're
you
going to
do it.
simply going to make you do it.
Yeah.
Right. That was one of the biggest things that when Poison Spider, JCR, and now Motobuilt, and Artec were doing was they're going, hey, we're just shipping you raw steel because to do a good quality powder or paint process, you gotta rough the surface, you gotta get some etch primer on
Yeah.
there, you gotta really get some bite into it, then you gotta get a full coat. And they said if we were to do that as a manufacturer, the price point will simply be in excess of what is available to the average
Well,
household.
and that market is very volatile. It's only one change of an EPA law or this change or that change for that to be a real big process change for you. So now you suddenly have to pivot yourself as a manufacturer and go, okay, well, now I can't have it powder coated at this place down the street because they changed their powder, or they went out of business, or they doubled their costs, or something.
I think that's
like that.
one of the biggest things with our manufacturers that we choose is oftentimes the parts get held up in powder,
Yes.
right? In powder coating or coating themselves. And I can factually tell you of some of these high reputable manufacturers, whether it be Rusty's or Rock Hard or Iron Rock Off-Road or Highline Off-Road, those
we hear it on a regular.
correct that, hey, you got to bear with me. We can manufacture the parts. We can have a high quality welding machine and process and weld wire and gas to eliminate some of those impurities.
Yes.
But now, in order for it not to rust,
Yeah.
we need to send it out. And like Highline Off-Road has nothing short of like a 7-step powder coat process. If you're talking to me, socially, I'll often joke and say it's like 17 or 27 steps, but there's literally it has to do with acid baths and zinc phosphate coatings.
Yep.
A primer application, and then a couple different coats of powder coat to ensure the longest longevity. Now, with that said, that's also why we go back to Mopar Performance, why it takes so long for them to produce a product and bring it to market.
Because now they have to put their name on it.
They got to put their name on it. And a Rubicon bumper, I promise you, is going to be one of the best coatings on a bumper, period. But if you the price of entry for that same Rubicon bumper is going to be $1,500, $1,800, $2,000.
Yes.
Whereas you can, as the aftermarket support, what are you willing to pay for? Do you want to come out your pocket $1,800, or do you want to come out your pocket, I don't know, $300 because you really want a $1,000 winch to hang on there too?
And also that brings up another thing of copycats, because this is something that in the JKs we didn't really suffer from specifically with Mopar accessories, but right now you can go on Amazonian and buy our knockoff Mopar JL front bumper.
Yeah.
That it is a quarter or maybe $1,000 less. I'll put it out that far than what the Mopar is.
Sure.
But what they don't tell you is what steel is it, what hardware is it, how does it fit, how long is it going to last? Does it look the same? Yes-ish.
Yeah.
In the same way with lighting, and that's somehow they're just getting away
Lighting
with,
as in light bars and pod lights and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and somehow they're getting away with almost not caring about like what's the word I want to use?
Quality control or longevity or
having a design and you're not allowed to.
proprietary.
Yes.
They don't care about proprietary design.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
they're ready
ultimately,
to knock it off. They don't care.
And here's the piece, and I think it's valuable. We don't need to kick a dead horse. If you have questions or want follow-up, you can reach us on our text-only number. You can reach out to us on our Facebook page. Obviously, you can email Jeffrey. My thing is, there is a time and a place for imported manufacturing.
Yep.
We sell import manufacturing. The idea, or import manufactured products. The idea is that we want you as a consumer to be well aware. So maybe my priority is going to be $3,000 in Rockslide engineered steps installed on my vehicle. And since I prioritize that, you know what? I know I'm going to bash up my front bumper. And so I'm going to go ahead and just repurpose this Amazon one. That's fine, so long as you are fully conscious. But every day we log on to the off-road and 4x4 social pages, and you see a new to market JL, JT, JK owner, TJ, I don't care, go, I just bought so-and-so's bumper 3 months ago and it's rusted or it's falling apart here or it's this problem. Just because you saw it in a magazine or advertised on your Facebook feed doesn't mean it was a good product. We want you to have your eyes wide open and understand the realities of the market, understand the realities of USA versus the world of manufacturing.
Not to mention, a lot of those products, customers get them, they put it on their vehicle, they post it in the groups and how excited they are about how it looks. And then the newcomer comes along and goes, "Oh, they love that product." They're not seeing what happened to that product 3 months later.
Yes.
6 months later, a year, whatever.
They're seeing that initial buzz and excitement, and
100%.
And that's a marketed and intentional thing that these manufacturers and now these conglomerates, because that has become increasingly part of our off-road industry. Financial conglomerates have seen a manner in which they can make money off of us by purchasing some of these brands and then saturating the market with them. Right.
And final thing for me is like a call to action. You guys are the makers of this destiny. If you go and you buy cheap products and you don't expect better, you're going to continue to get cheap products shoved down your gullet.
Race to the bottom.
Race to the bottom. If you buy the best product you can afford and you expect to hold them to accountability, and maybe that isn't getting it repaired or replaced, but maybe you were a squeaky wheel and you were annoying a little bit, and they're like, hey, we're tired of 500 calls today of people complaining about blah, and now we're going to actually do something about it. That makes a difference in the market for the next guy.
So that goes to the buy once, cry once mentality. Yes. Am I going to, put the money out now and buy the best possible product I can afford?
Yep.
To expand upon yours, we actually had a tire carrier bumper, a big name manufacturer who was actually a hardcore USA manufactured product. It was recently purchased by a big conglomerate. We had a customer come in, buy a very expensive bumper and tire carrier.
Yes.
And that bumper tire carrier in a very fast period of time started to rust and have like this weird weep of rust water coming out. And what was happening is water is permeating inside basically a lack of welds, but the design itself of the bumper carrier or the tire carrier was not great, right?
Yep.
And we kept hammering this manufacturer, and they were saying, actually, that was a really low batch run of that. Oh, we're going to go to the engineer, the guy who made this. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Yeah. We kept being the squeaky wheel that you were just talking about.
It took months.
So here's the reality.
Year and a half later.
I'll be honest with you. I'm just owning the world. This manufacturer has never made right on that situation. That's just the reality of
at least we didn't just lay down and
not only did we not lay down and take it, they don't offer that product to the market anymore. And that is, I'm not to say that I'm proud of that fact, but the fact that there's not somebody else out there getting taken advantage of, putting out thousands of dollars for this product that is not a great design.
What bothers me is the fact that they still haven't made it right by this customer.
And that is
they've recognized that there was an issue and they've taken it off the market.
And honestly, that's another thing that really irritates me is when somebody buys a product for a lot of money thinking it's good, and then turns out it's not, and they could have bought a better product for less.
Correct.
And sometimes it's just the fact that they thought that was the brand they should have aligned with, and it's not.
And that's part of the problem. Sometimes you get what you pay for, but not always.
Yeah.
Sometimes you are overpaying for a product that isn't actually what it is.
It stings a little bit more when a customer's paid plenty.
When it's an overpaid.
I think the last piece of that is simply to say that is why good quality business owners and individuals, brands, businesses like SFJ 4x4 can exist in this kind of middle ground. The difference is specifically in that customer's build, they came in and they said, I want to do my Jeep in all of this brand.
Yeah.
Right. I always
kind of took that away from us a little bit.
It takes away from us being able to make the recommendation for for what we have seen as proven brands in the market.
Yep.
When to expand upon what Jeffrey's saying, like what do you have invested in that brand? Are they paying you to put your whole vehicle in this bumper package and this armor and these shocks?
Just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
I know personally a person that says, well, I'll buy the most expensive part I can. That means it'll be good. That is not the case.
It
And
doesn't.
I think that with that as and I know it's not exactly. It isn't exactly, but similarly related. Moog parts, right?
Yeah.
And so when we talk about USA versus the world, this is more of a OE-inspired product line. Moog is our preferred vendor when it comes to ball joints at our average level and our steering components. But I will not use their U-joints
Yep.
or hub assembly, hub bearing assemblies
Yep.
on a vehicle. So just because one part of their line is, in my opinion, one of the best on the market,
Yep.
does not mean the entirety of their product offering is ideal.
And as a perfect example, using Moog, they're also not the most expensive one.
They're not.
Yes.
They're not, and the most expensive one is arguably less quality.
And
Yes.
and what's frustrating on that note is that then you have off-road manufacturers jumping in, going, "Oh, well, we're making a better ball joint." No, you make suspension components or you make bumpers.
Yeah.
Don't jump in and try and make a ball joint. You know what I mean? And
Because that's literally what Moog's doing with the other parts that we won't use. Is they're not actually manufacturing those; they're white boxing them. Is which they mean they go and they buy a product and they put their name on it. They don't have the same quality control. They don't have the same design. But you think because their name's on it that they do, but they actually don't.
so, I mean, I hope that this has been a appropriately informative. It's a little bit of a delicate situation because we don't exactly want to isolate you as a consumer. If you go, "Oh man, I've got that product on my Jeep, are they trashing me?" No, we're trying to inform the masses, right? There is a
Yeah.
time and place to order an Amazonian bumper, or to refresh one that's already rusted and you can sandblast it and paint it, and because it's affordable. Cool, we get that, right? But it's about being educated and aware of the processes that you are using so that you can speak from an informed position.
Yep.
And Darla's in the comments saying, "I'd rather have good parts and not buy the name."
100%.
Yep, and that's
the summary of it.
That is the good summary of it. All right, before we depart, we've got just a fun little piece to do for our listeners. Ultimately, this is a game that is largely going to be for all three of you listening globally at this point, because it requires you not necessarily to see us, because ultimately it requires our participants here in studio not to see. So you're going to close your eyes. We're going to start with Scott.
Oh, jeez.
And I have here in front of me I have a box. It's about, I don't know, 5 foot or 5 foot.
5 foot. Holy
Whoa.
cow!
It is, it is a little box on my lap, gentlemen. About 5
Wow.
inches by 10 inches by 5 inches, right? So we've got
That
this.
quality control. That
Did we
Stanley
ever-
tape measure went down.
I was gonna say, did we ever release the tape measure
No,
video that
thank
we
God.
did? No, we need to release that. That'll just really put things in perspective for our listeners.
So what we're gonna do is the mad scientist and the Italian stallion, they're gonna close their eyes.
Oh, boy.
They're gonna reach into the box.
Trust exercise.
Yep,
Yeah.
right. Team building, trust exercise. You're going to do your best to describe what's in your hand, and
I lost
then-
already.
and then you're going to tell us what application on the vehicle this is, if it has any. Right?
Yep, I lost
Um,
already.
There
This isn't even fair.
There are some
Pit
easy
me against
ones.
Scott.
There are some easy ones, and then there are some really hard ones. I kid you not. I promise you not.
I don't think there's a single thing you could put in that box that Scott is not going to know.
Well,
We've
there's-
played this game before,
there's
and Scott
one-
and you both dominated, and
I
I tried to
understand.
pick challenging parts.
I know, and I wanted to bring this back because it's good for our listening audience, but it's also entertaining
But you're
for
the
our
Jeff.
viewers. But you are the Jeff. You've got a whole
Which is
extra
why
year
I'm
and a
going to
half
lose
in.
this game.
Yeah, you've got so close your eyes.
Yeah.
Mad scientist, reach into the box. I promise there's no mouse traps in there. That'll be for Jeffrey.
Okay, so I have a piece of
Well,
plastic.
go ahead, pull it out. Pull out what you got.
Got a piece of plastic.
Oh, that one's one of the harder ones. It's not.
Meh.
Like I said, this isn't even a good game.
Someone would describe this of like almost like a hat with a little pointy top with a hole in this top.
How
of that
big is it?
point.
When you say it's a hat, I mean, is it a hat
it's
that I
very
could wear on
small.
my head?
It depends on if I'm using your Stanley tape measure.
Woo!
This could be like 12 feet wide, you know. Anyway,
It's like 2 or 3 inches in
yeah, it's
diameter.
two
Two
or-
inches
2
in
inches
diameter, right?
so should I just tell you what it is?
Well,
now?
and on a just a scale size, to me, it kind of reminds me of like a Lego hat. You
Yes.
know what I mean? 2 inches in diameter and
Yeah.
2 inches tall.
Yes.
What? Go ahead. What is it?
This goes on Steer Smart's or a ball joint protector for the boot.
Yep. That is, it protects the stem and threads of a Steer Smart's
Speaking
components.
of quality stuff, they literally
quality
have
USA manufactured.
and this is a pretty robust piece of plastic. This would beat the crap out of your cap on your spray can.
And that's a throwaway piece,
Yes.
folks. And that was
This
what I
is
think
just
is
to protect that boot from not getting damaged in transit.
in transit, transportation,
And
warehousing.
Just make me think of it. Their boxing stuff. Oh my goodness. They have that stuff is not moving around
Nope.
in
Yep.
that packaging.
Everything's
They are
laser cut
serious.
cardboard. It's all
And
really
that's
well
Steer
packaged
Smart's JKS does a similar
with the foam.
Yeah.
quality manufacturing. Rusty's spray foams and wraps everything.
Yep.
You know,
I
you're gonna
actually
know.
really hate unboxing Rusty's products because of the spray foam.
We're
going
going
to
to show that off in these new unboxing
Yeah.
videos. We're going to give you the entirety from start to finish and show off what these manufacturers, the care that they take in boxing them in the process. All right, Jeffrey, close your eyes. Reach in there, grab your part, bring it out. Okay. All right, this is right up Jeffrey's alley.
This is for LED lights.
What is this? What
This
is
is-
this?
Yeah,
What is
So I've
describe
got-
it, man.
So I've got a wire plug, male end and female end, with a resistor or capacitor of some kind in the
It's a
middle.
driver. I would call it a driver.
Driver.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for LEDs.
It is. You're absolutely right, Jeffrey. Look
I
at Jeffrey.
feel
Ding,
pretty
ding,
good
ding,
about
ding.
that one.
Yeah.
So
because he's the Jeff.
the Jeff. So this is not a conversion
Nope.
adapter or pigtail. This is just simply a driver to give resistance to the LED lights. Again, when we were talking about overseas versus well, much of our LED and electrical components that you're going to buy, period, are largely going to come from overseas at this point, based on price point and kind of the prioritization of USA manufacturing.
So Brian Ritchie's in the comments saying RPM steering boxes, their parts well too.
Nice,
So-
nice. And RPM actually is they're actually selling a lot of Apex product as well. So RPM is the main tube manufacturer. Their RPM is out there they're cherry picking as well. And it's important to note that they're on their come up of supplying good quality parts to their customers. I was back to the electrical, that one of the things with these drivers that can be purchased online on Amazon or Walmart or any of your standard retail outlets can also come with your higher quality LED manufacturers, that there are different grades of these as well.
Yes.
We have seen different drivers. We've seen different grades of wires and plugs.
And more
going.
expensive lights may have that built in.
It may actually have it built in. You don't need it.
Need it.
This was at a time when the JK market where one size fits most,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Hey, we can build this light over here, and if you're going to put it into your TJ,
You
then
don't need it.
you don't need this. If you're going to put it into your JK, then here's your adapter. Those types of things."
Yep.
All right, jump back into the box. What are you doing?
It's really hard to gauge where the box
It
is.
is.
Oh, that one's easy for Scott.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
So I have another hat, but this one's metal. It's again about 2-ish inches in diameter, with a stem in the center, and it is a body mount mushroom, we call them.
I was going to say
Yep.
it looks like a mushroom.
This is to keep your body mount from collapsing. So basically, that tube in the center of it hits the bottom tube of which has the bolt going through it, and then you cannot over tighten.
You
it.
can't over tighten those body bushings and depreciate them any faster. All
Oh,
right,
how
Jeffrey,
bad is this
man.
gonna be?
I would dig around in there, Jeffrey, see if you can't get a good one. Let me see what you got. Oh, yeah, that's decent. That's decent.
So this feels like a spacer.
Okay.
Really bad at describing things.
Yeah,
It is a black, round, cylindrical object with.
Is it a foot in diameter? You're using your
Wow,
Stanley
Jeffrey. Okay. All right. On that note, folks, the program is about to turn X-rated. And Jeffrey
What are you
is
putting in the
carrying that
box?
flag. Jeffrey is carrying that flag into battle.
Here's your black cylinder back.
Yeah, I'll take that back. Well, how'd that get in there, folks? All right, I have one.
Side note: we don't like to open Amazon packages that come to the shop anymore.
Don't talk to me.
No.
man. Don't talk to me. Here we go. Mad Scientist, I have one that I think I'm going to stump you with.
Oh, jeez.
It would be unfair of me to give this to Jeffrey.
Okay.
I'm going to give it to you.
Okay.
This is what actually, I came across this the other day, and I thought it's what kind of bore this game back into my brain. I thought, man, it's been a long time since we did this.
Yeah.
Okay. Did this game, this activity for our viewers and listeners at home. This is the one. I have faith in you in so many things, but I think that this is such an obscure piece
Oh boy.
that that will be the challenge for you.
Jeff's excited over there.
No, I think that Neil is purposely trying to manipulate it to make you overthink it.
All right, you ready? Hands out,
Yeah.
eyes closed.
Hmm.
He's pondering, folks. He's dipping deep into.
Oh, that's easy.
Oh!
It's a spacer for the battery on the JL.
Oh, fantastic!
See,
Stinking
he's just
tastic.
done a bunch of battery stuff with JL, so that's
for those
pretty
that don't
easy
know,
for him.
This is a foot that goes into your battery box, and it allows you to run the
When he
normal
says
battery.
it says it's a foot, it's a brace that
Yeah.
it's an insert piece. It's only about 2 inches by
you really
1
wouldn't
inch.
even realize it was a removable piece if you didn't know it. But a diesel has a bigger battery, and so this is not in that diesel battery tray. The benefit is we can remove this piece and then run that bigger battery in our
And
JL.
because we've done a lot of the upgrade batteries, he's really familiar with that.
So
piece.
when we've talked about USA versus the world and upgrades and good quality choices, and ultimately battery technology is a tech that is largely from outside the borders of the U.S. There are USA manufactured batteries, but the challenge is they come at a price point that is typically in excess of the
Yeah.
average consumer. There is a great quality line called Deca out of Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
There's man alive, I can't think of something, but obviously I don't want to overspeak for Odyssey or Optima, but those are good quality lines. The likelihood is they're utilizing imported parts. They never represent themselves as USA made. Understand that. But like I've been personally touched at a business level by AC Delco, thinking
Yes.
that AC Delco was the brand that I wanted them to be, and we invested heavily with
Yeah.
AC Delco batteries, only to be literally and figuratively stranded
Yeah.
by their poor manufacturing processes.
Likewise, I've had good and bad with Interstate. I've had good Interstate batteries, and I've had terrible Interstate batteries.
Yeah, and Interstate once was a powerhouse of the
Yes.
battery manufacturing lines. So the OE batteries on JLs and JTs, specifically with the auxiliary battery system, which is just this little 200 amp reserve capacity battery that is located down underneath your primary battery tray. A lot of people think that that's your start-stop battery because your start-stop stops working when that battery dies.
Yes.
Your start-stop is actually functioning on your big battery, the
Yep.
primary battery that when you open the hood, you can see. Most JLJTs are utilizing what's called an H6 battery.
Yep.
The H6 is by its size a 650 or 700 cold cranking amp battery, and it utilizes that little foot, that little
Yes.
bracket in the battery tray.
But the key point of this is if you have your stereo on, your AC on, your seat heater on because you're confused if you're hot or cold, a bunch of your nav on, you're charging your phone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and you're using your start stop, you come up to a traffic light and the Jeep shuts off, you now have to have the capacity to maintain all that draw
While your combustion engine is off.
and it's not charging anything. That is why there is two batteries. It's just to give it a more
It's that reserved capacity.
reserve capacity of both. So what we have found is that you can go to a bigger top mount battery
H7 series.
and then you can do two different things. You can delete the little battery because now you have the capacity in the big battery up top. Or if you're crazy, like I'm tempted to do,
Well, I think it's the preferred method is to have the additional reserve
you
capacity.
can literally replace the little battery and also have the big battery and have even more capacity.
Which is what we're doing on 9 out of 10 of our customers
Yep.
at this point, moving them up to an H7 and giving them a
Now,
new reserve
cost-wise,
capacity.
it is, you're now paying up for both a bigger top battery, which is more expensive, and then again, you're hand picking a little battery that's also expensive. So it is not the cheap way to go.
But
by
it's the
any
buy
stretch.
once, cry once mentality to say, hey, I've set myself up for the best case scenario.
And
Yeah,
Chip's in the comments saying evil little battery. He has been touched by the JLJT
Yes.
battery situation.
It's part of the rite of passage of JLJT
Yes.
ownership.
And honestly, it's becoming more and more common, especially as they're starting to age out a little.
And this is literally also something that we're continually learning on, something that we've, the last couple of months, have really started to formulate a plan for us. Like, what does this look like? How can we foresee into the future what is going to be coming down the pipe? What makes these fail? Why are they failing? That kind of stuff.
Yep.
Because we don't want you to be stranded. We don't want you to be where Chip was, where Jeep was perfectly fine, and then suddenly it wasn't.
And we've really gotten good at recognizing those early signs and saying, "Hey, this is what is happening, and
Yeah.
we can address it now, or you can let it go, and now you're going to be replacing 2 batteries later."
Yep. Or you could be me and ignore it and find yourself stranded on Ocracoke Island with no parts store and a
Yes.
Jeep that won't run by itself.
And you can't get back on the ferry because
And
it
you
won't
can't
run.
get back on the ferry.
And,
'cause it
and
won't
this
run.
is our other, service to you. If you have the Avengers light on your JLJT and your start stop hasn't been working for a minute, you need to do something now.
That's right.
You're going to be on Ocracoke and be stranded.
Figuratively and literally. With that, folks, I hope you enjoyed USA versus the World. We'll do it again next week. Until then, Jeep on.
Keep on.
Jeep on.